Welcome to the Bee Shoe Show, everyone. I'm your host, Carolina, and today we have the absolute pleasure of diving into an electrifying journey with the world of fitness and holistic wellness and a remarkable individual, Dakota, who is also the founder of Dakota Lane Fitness. Dakota is a Colorado native with a burning passion for helping people experience life at its heights. And by this, I mean everything in between, which is work, faith, health, fitness, and beyond. After earning his bachelor's degree in theology and a master's degree in leadership, Dakota embarked into journeying and merging both his passions by becoming an NASM and NCSF certified personal trainer. Dakota's story is a transformation of perseverance, relentless pursuit of excellence. Dakota's path took an unexpected turn by working at a high school local church. Little did he know that this would shift and set the whole stage into an ambitious path, which was the creation of creating Dakota Lane Fitness. Through Dakota Lane Fitness, Dakota became an individual where people would seek hope in seeking transformations, from crafting customized nutrition plans to designing personalized exercise programs. Dakota approach was not just a physical fitness, but to me, it was about igniting a spark within each client to live their best lives and their overall well-being. With clients spanning from 48 different states and 13 countries, yes, you heard it right, Dakota's impact has no bounds. That's definitely for sure. From helping stay at home moms reclaiming their vitality to guiding professional athletes at their peak of their performance, Dakota has left a mark to hundreds of people. But Dakota's journey is not just this, it's about overcoming obstacles and defying the odds. From being a petite high school student to becoming the winner at Mr. Rocky Mountain in men's physique, Dakota's story is a testament of resilience and determination. Join me in welcoming Dakota to the Bishu Show, where we ignite the fire within each listener to pursue the journey of greatness from going, and we're going to be delving into fitness, nutrition, and holistic wellness. It's an honor to have you here, Dakota. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Absolutely. Super glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. So let's start with your story. How has your life experiences and your journey shaped your path into, first of all, founding Dakota Lane Fitness?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually need to update some of those stats. Now I'm in 22 countries and all 50 states, which is pretty wild. But yeah, it's been a wild journey. Like you kind of mentioned, my background was like working in a church and theology, and I was really interested in helping just to form and invest into young people and just help them to kind of find a an intentional, inspired path in their life. And so it really kind of played took on a different role when fitness kind of became a big thing in my life, because it wasn't really a big thing for most of my life. So it wasn't really until later on, really college and then beyond, that I started to get more into fitness. And at the beginning, I loved it for myself, but I would say it was more selfish desires, right? Like I wanted to look a certain way. But very quickly, it became about a lot more. And I realized that the life of discipline is really not just about me controlling myself, but controlling myself so I can give myself to others better. And that's what it comes down to. And that's really, for me, what life is all about, is about serving others, pouring out your life, using your gifts and your talents to help make others' lives better. So it's been really cool to now, have created my business almost 8 years ago, and to have helped hundreds and hundreds of people from all walks of life, which we'll dive a little bit more into, and really just to be able to pour out not just my knowledge, but really my passion for caring for people. There's thousands of personal trainers out there, and what for me, what I'm really passionate about, and I think what sets me apart is just my individualized care for the whole person. It's kind of a cliche term, like, making it a lifestyle, or holistic health. But for me, it really is. In the fitness industry, competing, I've met a lot of people who are on billboards who have extremely amazing physiques, and they're very miserable people. So you can look really good, but you can also, not be right on the inside. And so you have to have both. You have to have both simultaneously, or else for me, it's not complete health. So yeah, it's been awesome to be able to invest into people's lives, the mental, the physical, the spiritual, emotional, and to help people just, elevate, like you said, on every aspect of their life.
That's so amazing and so great to hear. Definitely 8 years in the making, and I'm sure it's been a lot of hard work. And since you talked a little bit about mind and body connection in the fitness world, let's dive into that. Like, I know that mental wellness impacts physical performance, as you were mentioned. How do you incorporate the strategies about stress reduction, mindfulness, resilience, mental resilience specifically, because it's really tough, at least like sometimes when I challenge myself, right, into your coaching approach in Dakota Lane Fitness?
Yeah, it really is a deep topic. So many people come with different baggage, with different emotional, struggles that they have when it comes to their relationship with food, their relationship with their body, with exercise. And honestly, like so many people are just chronically stressed. People are just so busy. They're not good at investing in themselves. And then the other big component is like this mindset piece, which is a piece that I really focus on a lot. Um, I the mindset that we have, a lot of people, I think, they just assume that however they think and feel is just the way they think and feel, and they can't really change that. That couldn't be further from the truth. You just look at some of the top athletes of the world, the things, or just different stories of inspiring people of what they've had to push through. Our mindset is moldable, it's flexible. And one of the coolest things for me working with clients is to help them to realize that fact, that there's things that they once thought were impossible that all of a sudden become possible. And I call it mental ammunition. We all have those termites that I call that, just eat away at our brain, those little thoughts that we have that are negative, and you have to have mental ammunition to fight back against those. And so, for me, a lot of it, my clients may come to me, and honestly, sometimes I think they don't even know if it's going to be possible to accomplish what they want, but they're just taking a risk of like, I've tried everything else, I'm just going to go for this. And so sometimes I think they're they don't even know if it's possible. And then when they start to achieve these things, it develops that mental ammunition to begin to combat those termites that, again, nag at them and say, you can't do this, you're not good enough, whatever it may be. So yeah, when it comes to stress reduction, obviously there's a lot of things that go into that. There's multiple different aspects, and that's just health in general, right? So you have like supplementation, you have nutrition, you have exercise, and then you have things outside of that, just proper sleep, having people who are, taking some time for recollection, prayer, meditation, whatever that looks like for you, to have some silence. We're not very good at having silence in our culture now. We're so busy on social media doing so many things, that a lot of times we don't even know what's going on in our own mind. We're just so busy and focused. So I think for me, working with clients, a big thing is just taking the time to just pause and ask them those questions. Not just about what are the goals that you want in your body, but what's the kind of lifestyle that you want? What are the goals you want to achieve, in the big picture, not just with your body, but with your whole life? What's the type of energy that you want to have? And I think a lot of people don't have somebody in their life who wants to invest in that way. So yeah, there's certain supplementation for sure, that can support, but foundationally, nutrition and exercise are huge when it comes to mental health. Thankfully, we're getting more research now, to show kind of the impacts of especially exercise, but also nutrition on depression, anxiety, some mental disorders. It has tremendous impact, and I see it, happen all the time with my own clients, just in their own experience. And it really is one of the most fundamental things that we can do to increase our quality of life. And unfortunately, not to bash Western medicine, there's some good things about it, but I think there's a lot of ways that it's kind of gone astray and just followed the money. But, most doctors, a lot of times my clients will tell me they go to the doctor, they have an issue with their blood or maybe something mental. And what does the doctor do? Do they ask them, oh, let's look at your lifestyle. Let's look at all these different habits and things that we can do to improve? No. They say, okay, what pharmacy do you go to? Okay, I'll have a prescription ready for you to pick up later this afternoon. And then people just take pills and just regulate themselves through chemicals. We're not made to be that way. So when you start to learn how to treat your body the right way, everything starts to fall in line.
That is so true. And I'm the type that I am a true believer of nutrition with foods, organic foods per se, as I was able to, I used to have this thing where I would get bruises all over my legs and I didn't know what was going on. I would feel fatigued, and I was able to overcome this by nutrition. Everything was full implementation of just changing my foods, learning how to eat properly, and reducing, fast foods, etc. So I'm a true believer of that, So let's talk about a little bit about nutrition since you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sucralose specifically. You know that it's an artificial sweetener, right? Most known as sugar-free products, as people would say, right? Can you discuss the potentials of sucralose on blood sugar levels, the insulin sensitivity, the weight management, and whether it has a place in a balanced nutrition plan for athletes or for your clients? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, so it's kind of a controversial subject. People in the fitness industry are going to be on different sides. I'll come out with full disclosure that I am much more on the pro. Like I'm okay with it within a certain context. When you look at the research, the big kind of like push against artificial sweeteners came in the 1980s with a study that was done. First of all, it was done on mice, but the amount of artificial sweeteners that they used in that study it's not replicable in human beings, like the amount that you would have to use. So originally, like the big concern was, do artificial sweeteners cause cancer? And so there was this study that came out about these mice that shows that there could be some connection. Again, number one, like animal studies, they do have a place, but animals and humans are very different. Our organisms, our physiology are very different. So in that regard, it was already one way that the study just wasn't great. And then the amount that they used, there's been other studies that have been done later on. But just to speak to the insulin sensitivity really quick, there was a meta-analysis in 2018, I believe, which is basically where they just take a ton of different studies that have been done and kind of create a conclusion. Well, that one basically showed that no, there is no issue when it comes to insulin sensitivity or insulin release. There has been like smaller little studies along the way that have shown like, oh no, look, there is causing insulin spike. But if you think about it, if we were having big insulin spikes every time we were drinking a Coke Zero, we would become hypoglycemic, because if you're intaking the artificial sweetener that's 0 calories, and then so your insulin's spiking, but your blood sugar isn't increasing, you're going to go into hypoglycemia. So just practically speaking, it doesn't make sense. Now, what I will say is, it's going to be case by case. The other big thing that people are concerned about is like gut health. Again, like from the research that I've seen, like there's little things here and there. A lot of them are done in vitro, though. Like a lot of them are not yet done on like normal randomized control groups. So from my perspective, from the research that I've done, I haven't seen anything conclusive that would give like a big red flag. Now, again, we should be prioritizing water. We should be prioritizing whole nutrition. But is there a place to have a Coke Zero here and there to try to take the edge off of a sweet craving? I think absolutely. The other thing that people like to bring up with artificial sweeteners is the correlation between artificial sweeteners and obesity. And people say, well, if it's supposed to help, then, why is there this correlation? And this is like an important distinction with research, is the difference between correlation and causation. So on the one hand, correlation would mean that there's two aspects that are correlated. So, a lot of people who drink artificial sweeteners have a high level of obesity. That would be correlation. But the difference is the artificial sweeteners causing the obesity? And that's where you don't see the connection. Because the reality is most people who drink artificial sweeteners are trying to lower their overall calorie intake and lose weight. So yeah, the correlation is going to be higher that more people who are obese are drinking artificial sweeteners. But that's like, it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? It wasn't the artificial sweeteners that made them gain weight. They were already at a certain point of obesity, and then they're drinking these. So there's a higher correlation. So for me, I don't support like the whole agenda, kind of like anti artificial sweeteners. And again, you may disagree. For me, it's something that has a time and a place. When it comes to like the gut microbiome, are there things that maybe we want to be concerned about? Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be drinking tons and tons of it, but honestly, it goes for anything. Like I saw a really interesting, a good Instagram video a while back that was kind of talking about artificial sweeteners, and it was going over some of these different chemicals, and it was talking about not artificial sweeteners, but a different thing. It was like, have you ever heard about this? These certain elements that are super toxic to the body in high amounts. And anyways, they go through this whole thing, and it ends up just being water. Like that's what it comes down to. If we drink too much water, it's also going to be toxic for us. So yeah, the long and short of artificial sweeteners is, in my experience with my clients, like priority is always going to be nutrition is first. Getting your nutrition from good whole foods, making sure exercising. But realistically speaking, working with humans, like there's going to be scenarios that may cause somebody to be like, hey, normally I would really want to have whatever that may be, and maybe that Coke Zero or whatever it is, maybe a good fill-in for that. So that's my take on it, a little bit more realistic. When it comes to these topics, there's always going to be the ideal, like what are we shooting for in the ideal? But then working with humans, you have to also be realistic. So like, even with nutrition, like, yes, I would love my clients to look at how their food is sourced and to get really good source food, whole foods. But like, is there sometimes where like a client needs a granola bar because they're on the run? Yeah. Is there going to be some ingredients that maybe aren't ideal? Yeah. But in the long, the big picture, the whole point of nutrition is not to make ourselves immortal. We're not going to be able to eat ourselves into immortality. We're going to die at some point. So it's about picking and choosing our battles, and taking care of the gift that we have in our body, but not becoming so obsessed about every little thing that we feel like we can't do anything or we're going to get cancer. Does that make sense?
No, I'm totally 100% with you. And basically what you're trying to say is, whether you're using artificial sweeteners, you're into the gut, you want to make sure that you take care of yourself. Everything you have to do with a balance, right? If you have to cheat on a day, go for it, right? We're only humans. We're not perfect. And there's some days where we're not going to have time to cook or take care of ourselves. And there's some days that me as a female, right, I have my cravings. When it's that time of the month, I'm definitely craving sweet. Sure. I'm going to go and eat a Pazuki cookie, which is my favorite. You know what I mean? So I'm 100% with you in that perspective, for sure. Now, let's talk about trendy diets, right? So we have had trendy diets such as keto, intermittent fasting, plant-based eating. How do you navigate the sea of nutrition information and misinformation, right? And help your clients adopt a sustainable evidence-based diet for their daily nutrition goals and their fitness goals?
Yeah, it's a great question, because there is so many. And I mean, we think that a lot of this is new, but there's been these trends that have come up, every so years, forever, since like, nutrition's become a topic. Back in the 80s or whatever, you had like the Atkins diet that came up and the Weight Watchers, and then you had the carb insulin model of obesity and all these different things. For me, what it comes down to, the bottom line, is that I believe that our bodies were created a certain way, and this isn't subjective. Like, there is objectivity to how our bodies were created. Are there nuances? Yes. But when we look at the research, there's going to be, bottom lines to this. And really what it comes down to when it comes to weight management is going to be calories. That's going to be the bottom line. So all of the different approaches are all kind of basically controlling calories from a different perspective, and they have different nuances. There's the big one I would say right now, the biggest one would be intermittent fasting. I would say in the last 5 years for me, it was like ketogenic was a big thing. Is there a place for all of these? Absolutely. And if it works for somebody and you're able to get a good holistic nutrition approach within that context, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think what I have an issue with is when people are miseducated, and they're doing things for the wrong reasons. So when people come to me and they want to do ketogenic, or intermittent fasting because they think that it's going to be more effective for fat loss, that's where I'm going to draw the line, because the research doesn't support it. If you take like pretty much all these diets, but let's just take those big two, ketogenic and intermittent fasting, and you have an isocaloric diet, which means a diet of the same exact calories, there's no difference when it comes to fat loss, whether it's ketogenic, intermittent fasting, or just a regular well-balanced diet throughout the day. There's no difference for weight loss. Now, there are some other nuances. If somebody's looking to build muscle, I would say intermittent fasting is not going to be the most conducive. Same with ketogenic. And so there's different, nuances to it. But overall, how do you navigate the sea of knowledge? I would say finding somebody who's a trusted source, who's done the work for you and looked through everything to be able to kind of consolidate things down. One of the things, on Instagram or TikTok, whatever, is you'll see a lot of these videos that come out that are really catchy, and, clients are sending me them all the time of, hey, did you see this about this certain thing? And for me, if you just follow the trail a little bit, a lot of times the person who made it, you go to their link in their bio, it's like, oh, what are they selling? Oh, they have a book on intermittent fasting. Oh, they have these keto brownies or whatever it may be. Like, a lot of times you can see the influence of what they're doing based off how they're making their money. So you got to find somebody who's unbiased, who's educated, who can kind of help you navigate. But for me, anytime a coach or somebody says that this way is the one way to do things, this is the best way, like, that's just a red flag for me, because there isn't just like one best way to do this. Can you lose weight on ketogenic? Yes. Can you lose weight on intermittent fasting? Yes. Can you lose weight by still eating a lot of carbs? Yes. Carbs are not bad. Fat's not bad. Eating throughout the day isn't bad. So a lot of this is tied up into, fitness, nutrition myths. A lot of people are just miseducated. And so, yeah, I could go down the rabbit hole of like why I don't, necessarily support ketogenic, or why intermittent fasting maybe isn't the best. Again, there's positive things to them. So it's not to say that these things are just bad approaches overall. There's good, or plant-based, or carnivore. And just anecdotally, I've had clients who have tried different things, and some people just feel really good eating a certain way. Like, I have some clients who wanted to try the carnivore diet. It's not, it wouldn't be necessarily the one that I would put somebody on right away. But if it works for somebody and they feel great, like, by all means, if you're still getting good nutrition and you're still able to perform, at the level you want to, then there's nothing wrong with it. So for me, it's just, again, about making sure people understand why they're doing something a certain way, as opposed to just, oh, I saw this TikTok video where this person said, intermittent fasting is going to help with my autophagy and my cell regeneration, all these different things. And so I'm just going to do that. And you're like, well, do you even know what any of that means? Or are you just following this person because they sounded smart and used a lot of big words?
And it's so true, because I see it all the time. People are misinformed, and there's so much data, and like, people are putting quick 30-second videos, and maybe they're being misinformed by a different source, right? Maybe they're not actually going to the science direct research paper, where I actually like to get my information and my data there, where there's been studies where they think this is going to help them, or, oh, the juicing diet is now the new trend, that everyone goes out there and buys a juicer, and they start doing it, and then they realize, oh my God, I'm missing my sugars, I'm feeling dehydrated, I'm not feeling so well. And then this causes an effect, right? Of, hey, maybe now I have to go to the doctor, I'm not feeling so great, and so on, So it's like a domino effect happening.
Yeah.
For sure. Let's talk about a little bit about your experience as a coach, right? What are some of the common misconceptions and myths about fitness and nutrition that you've encountered? How do you address them? There's also a lot of myths for females, like, oh, I don't want to do a lot of heavy weights because I'm going to get super bulky. And for males, right, in terms of like, oh my God, I don't want to do hip thrusts because that's for females. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a lot of, this kind of was going back to is like just miseducation. I would say for women, that's a huge one, is that lifting is going to make me bulky. It's unfortunate, because a lot of girls become afraid of weightlifting, and they don't realize that the goal that they're wanting to achieve is going to be achieved most efficiently through weightlifting. Nobody accidentally became super jacked. If that happened, you would see a bunch more people out there who are more muscular. Like, how many women do you see who are super muscular? Not that many. Women don't have the hormones that are going to be conducive for getting super jacked. Working out with resistance training across the board is going to be the most effective and efficient form of training for our overall health compared to anything. I don't care if you love cardio, Pilates, yoga, whatever. Every single person should be doing some sort of strength-based training because of the overall impact it has on us. That's metabolically, hormonally, body compositionally, but especially as we age, our body begins to break down muscle more rapidly. And it's super important to help to keep that. I tell people, if you don't use it, you lose it. But especially for girls, like a lot of girls are like, oh, I want that lean, toned, tight look, whatever. You don't get that by running on the treadmill. Cardio by nature is catabolic, meaning muscle wasting. You need to be doing strength-based training to build the muscles to give the shape that you want. So yeah, that's a big one. Another one, I'd say for both male and female, but I would say probably more for female would be, that carbs make us fat. That's a big one. Again, couldn't be further from the truth. Carbs are super important for functionality, for energy. Our body uses carbs, breaks them down into glucose, and that's basically our gasoline that we use for energy. When it comes to our overall, weight and health and stuff, eating too much is the issue. Another big myth is eating late at night is bad for me. A lot of people think this because, well, if I'm going to eat late and then I'm going to go to bed, it must be bad for me because digesting and I'm laying down and I'm not going to use the food for anything. Our body doesn't think like that. Our body isn't thinking meal to meal. The reason why a lot of people have issues eating late is because what are the foods that people typically go to late at night? Are they grabbing chicken breast with a salad at 10 p.m. watching TV? Like, no. They're grabbing Doritos and Cheez-Its and pop and popcorn and whatever it may be. Eating that stuff anytime throughout the day is not going to be ideal for you. It just happens to be a lot of people eat those late at night. So that's a big one. There's nothing wrong with eating late. A lot of my meals, I work late, so a lot of my last meals are at 11 o'clock midnight. And in fact, your body is doing most of its recovery and replenishing while you're sleeping. So it's important for your body to have the right nutrients in order to recover and replenish, especially if you're working out. Obviously, protein primarily, but healthy carbs, healthy fats are all going to be super important. So let's see, what are some other ones? There's a big thing about like fasted cardio being more effective for fat loss. Research doesn't support that. If it feels good to do fasted cardio, like by all means, but it doesn't support that. One big one is spot reduction. A lot of people think if I want to tone my stomach, I need to do more core work and more crunches. We cannot control where our body loses fat. Our body decides that however it wants. Typically, a lot of people store, a lot of more fat in their stomach, and that's one of the last places that people lose fat. But that's not the case for everybody. But we can't control where our body loses fat. So if we're doing core work, you can obviously build muscles there, but you're not going to see any difference until you start to lose body fat. Just exercising a certain muscle does not make you lose more fat in that one area. Your body's going to lose it however it wants to overall. And then I think, to go with the lifting weights makes me bulky, I think a lot of people think if I want to lose weight, I need to do cardio. And if I want to gain muscle, I need to lift weights. Both are important. Cardio is not just about losing fat. In fact, I don't even recommend typically for a lot of clients to do like long runs. A lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, I don't really like running. Am I gonna have to run? And I'm like, no, most of the cardio that I have my clients do is like what's called low intensity steady state. So just like walking on an incline or doing like a moderate pace on the Stairmaster, doing like long intense runs. If you think about marathon runners, like think about what their bodies look like. They're usually sticks and bones, but then you think about a sprinter and they usually have really impressive physiques. So doing long amounts of cardio, that's not going to be the most conducive way to lose weight. Resistance training actually burns more calories than traditional cardio does. So yeah, there's a lot of fitness nutrition myths. I'm trying to think things around nutrition. Yeah, I would say the biggest ones are going to be around carbs. Like I said, people thinking carbs are bad. Or, if I ask a lot of people, what would you do if you wanted to lose weight? A lot of people say, I'm going to cut out, bread. I'm going to cut out pasta, potatoes, white carbs. I eat, most of my carbs are white rice, bagels, pasta, potatoes. Like that's a lot of my carbs. If you're doing it right in the right amounts and you're utilizing it, food is energy. So if you're performing a certain way, you can utilize that energy. So yeah, there's a lot of fitness nutrition myths. It's unfortunate, but I think, a lot of just news segments or social media, again, people aren't looking at research like you were saying.
Yeah. And I totally agree. Something that people have to know is calories in, calories out. Are you using all those calories? And then that would be dependent on, are you trying to stay in balance? Therefore, your calories in and what you use for those calories should be in balance too. If you're trying to lose weight, then you have to reduce your calorie intake, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, one more question you had was how do I help my clients kind of navigate that? For me, again, that's what's really important about having a coach. Think about any industry. Whenever there's something that's important that we want to have, a tried and true approach for, we usually seek out a professional. If you have a cavity in your tooth, you don't see many people at home trying to fix their own cavity. They go to a dentist because they know that it's a specialized thing. There's somebody who's been there, done that, went to school, and is going to be able to do that effectively for you. When it comes to our health, the one body we have, which is a really complex organism, a lot of us just think like, oh, I'll just figure this out on my own, or I just saw some video or something, I'll just give it a shot. And not to say it's as complicated as filling a cavity, but I think a lot of people just don't realize that just having somebody to walk alongside of you, even just for that education side, so much of what I do is just educating my clients, and then having them come to me. A big one would be like when people are weighing themselves on the scale. So many people put so much emphasis on the number on the scale, especially women, and it can really mess with their mood and their mind and their overall attitude. And just from like helping people to understand more of what does that mean. It doesn't tell you anything about you. All it tells you is how much matter is on top of that surface. It doesn't tell you the shape, the size, the mood, how beautiful it is. All it tells you is how much is there. And weight loss goes up and down. So one of the things, clients will come to me and they'll say, hey, my weight was going down, but then it went up. For me, I'm like, yeah, that's normal. Your body should be adapting and it's going to have fluctuations, but the overall trend should go down. So something like that, for clients, it's helpful to just teach them as I go. And, the questions come up, hey, my friend's doing ketogenic. Should I be doing that? And then I can teach them more. So that's where having coaching and accountability is helpful to kind of put aside some of those emotional decisions and help people to think through it logically.
Yeah, no, totally. Because when I first started, I'm obviously a fitness junkie myself. I love exercising. I love working out. But when I first started, I was like, oh my God, I'm gaining. This was like over 10 years ago. I'm gaining weight. I was getting on the scale. Now I never weigh myself ever. And then you also have to take into account there's hormonal changes for females. There's hormonal changes for males. Age changes makes a huge difference. And I know that you started talking about the different body types. So let's talk a little bit about the body types, right? There's ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph, right? And how should the fitness and nutrition be strategized for each one to optimize their maximum reach? Or what's your stance on that?
Yeah. So again, this may be more of a controversial take on it. I don't believe in body types. It came out again. I think it was, I'm trying to remember the year. It was decades ago in the, I think mid 1900s that the guy came out with the body types. Are there 3 body types that people generally seem to fit into? Yeah, but that's just because more of people's lifestyles. Are people born with a certain body type that makes them look a certain way? No, there's not a certain body type that you're born into. Now, are there certain genetic predispositions? Are there people who might have more of a disposition to gain weight easier? Some people are leaner. Absolutely. You can see that all the time. Like some people, just even with my clients, come to me and their whole life they've been, skin and bones. No matter how much they eat, it seems like they can never put on weight. And then you have the opposite where it seems like if I just look at food, I'm going to gain weight. So yeah, there definitely are genetic differences. But as far as body types, I've seen there's some coaches out there and some programs that really hone in on that. They have these advertisements on Facebook that say, if you don't know your body type, you're never going to make any progress in fitness. Take this quiz now to figure out which body type you are so you can figure it out. And it goes down this whole funnel and eventually sells you their whatever coaching package. They're no different for any of the body types. So it's really unfortunate. It's just another way that people in the fitness and nutrition industry prey on people's emotions and thinking I have to figure out this certain secret method. There is no certain secret method. Consistency, doing it the right way, precision is going to be the tried and true. So yeah, when it comes to body types, again, are there certain genetic predispositions? Yes, but there's been plenty of people who have come to me and they've been, I'm this body type, or, I never have veins, or I've always just been fat and I'm always have this pear shape or whatever it is. And they go through transformation, they look completely different and they never go back to how they were looking before. So it's interesting because if somebody knew them before then, they'd say, oh, this is your body type. But now if they knew them after, they'd say, oh, this must be your body type. And they're two different things. So you can, if there is body types, they're not permanent. You can change them. Again, it's really about knowing yourself. And honestly, even the genetic dispositions, a lot of that, even, it's not even the case. What it really comes down to is familial habits. If you look at the research between parental obesity and childhood obesity, a lot of times it's not a genetic thing where the parent, just because they're fat, the kid is going to be fat. No, it's because the parents' habits and the way they're eating is impacting their kids. I have a really cool story about this. I have a client who's a dad. They have 5 kids, just had their 5th. And just a couple nights ago, he sent me a picture of all of his kids. And he's gone on this really big transformation. He's lost over 100, probably 130 pounds. Looks just, one of those crazy transformations, look totally different. And so, he's learned a lot about nutrition, and just his kids watching him, they started to want to have more protein and realize the importance of protein, because they would ask him, Dad, why are you eating this way? So he sent me a picture the other night. Every night before bed, they have a basket in their kitchen that has a bunch of different protein snacks, maybe beef jerky or Greek yogurt or a protein bar or whatever it may be. And each of the kids can pick out a protein snack before bed, and they want it. And then he sent me another picture last night, and one of the girls was like portioning out her beef jerky so she could make sure she had enough protein in her meal. For me, and he was just saying how amazing this was, because this, when he was a kid, food was just indulging, and he was, he got super fat early on. It was fat in his whole adulthood, because nobody ever taught him any different. Nobody ever taught him what food was for, but now he's breaking the cycle. And that's what he was so pumped about. He's like, this is amazing. I'm breaking the cycle for my kids. They're not going to have to grow up hating how they look. They're not going to have to grow up feeling like they're, out of control with nutrition, or they don't know what to do. They're not growing up eating a bunch of junk food. They're having, and so it was just really cool to kind of see that he's breaking that cycle. So yeah, when it comes to body types, no, I don't believe in body types. I believe that people, their habits create their body to look a certain way, but you can change it. I don't care how you look. I don't care if you're 600 pounds or if you're 80 pounds. You can change the way you look, and you can achieve whatever you want to if you're willing to put the work in.
I'm a true believer of that. And then for sure, nature versus nurture, right? Like the way little kids absorb everything from an adult, from everyone, right? So they're learning all the time without us even knowing and realizing it. And just the little different actions that we do, whether it's working out, reading, they'll want to do the same thing as us because it's somebody that they look up to,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I see that all the time with my clients. That's probably one of the coolest things, is seeing parents breaking that cycle and introducing their kids, because you're right, the kids, they absorb so much, and it's really cool. Some of my clients who are parents will tell me that their kids keep them accountable. I had one mom, her kids would call me Mr. Coda, and she would eat something and they would say, would Mr. Coda approve of that? And so they were like keeping her accountable to her plan. But yeah, kids, they're very smart. And it's unfortunate that a lot of kids just are not, taught, because so much of adult obesity starts with childhood. And so, yeah, it is really cool to kind of make that ripple effect, that generational impact.
Yeah, and break it for sure. And that's really important. And obviously, I mean, you're not just changing one person's life, you're changing families, you're changing generations. And this is something amazing to see, you know? Like, I mean, it has to feel amazing. What impact has it brought you now that you've been the founder of Dakota Lane Fitness for 8 years?
Mhm.
What are some of the most like impactful memories or, you know, impacts of other clients that you've had to you?
Yeah, man, there's so many. Yeah, I mean, some of the big ones would be like helping clients to reverse diabetes, helping a client who had debilitating rheumatoid arthritis to the point where she couldn't even open a jar of pickles without crying because it hurt, helping her to get off medications that she'd been on for years, you know, helping people to lose hundreds of pounds to the point where they can look in the mirror for the first time in their life and like what they see. You know, that's a big one. Having girls who wear a swimsuit for the first time in their life and feel confident, moms who feel empowered to play with their kids. You know, I have parents who will say, you know, today was the first time I was ever able to play with my kids without having to think about being out of breath, or like, you know, I couldn't play with them because my back hurt or because I was too out of shape. You know, and even just parents having confidence that when they're with their kids, you know, they look better and they don't feel like they're out of shape and that kind of stuff. There's been some amazing ones over the years. And then on the flip side, you know, people who are suicidal or who struggle with drug addiction. You know, I've had some really incredible clients crawl out of some really low places. I've gotten to work with a lot of clients who have severe eating disorders, whether that's anorexia, bulimia, purging, food addiction, exercise addiction, whatever it may be. I've had some tremendous victories with that, just helping people to crawl out of those, which is, you know, it's just life changing. When you go from being so trapped in that world to having freedom. That's really what health comes down to at the bottom line is freedom. It's quality of life, but it's freedom. It's freedom to live how you want to live, freedom to eat how you want to eat, freedom to dress how you want to dress, to realize that you can accomplish whatever you want. So yeah, I've had some incredible people that I've worked with over the years, 75-year-old people who you know, were afraid that they weren't going to be around to see, you know, for their grandkids, and now they feel just confident in their health. And man, there's so many. Yeah, it's been amazing over the years, from, like I said, the negative side to the positive side and in between. Yeah, people, I would say, like, the most common theme, if I had to sum it all up, would just be people coming to me feeling like something is impossible, and then realizing, like, not only is this possible, but I can claim this, I can do this, and I can go beyond it. Like, the sky is the limit, really.
So it's so amazing to hear this impact that you're just not providing self-love, confidence, right? Helping others with depression, because I know that exercise is the #1 antidepressant in the world. But you're also helping families, you're helping like people about to pass away. And this is amazing impact, not just within the United States, but in different countries. So it's so beautiful to hear and to see the different stories and the impacts that you're, you know, just from online sometimes, where you're just in Colorado and making impact all over the world. And this is so beautiful to see. Like, seriously, I just love the stories.
Yeah, it's been cool. And like you said, the international ones is really cool to learn different cultures. I've had clients all over in India, Japan, Brazil, Australia, Kenya, Morocco. The most unique one was Antarctica. I actually had a client who was working in Antarctica, believe it or not. That one was pretty wild. But yeah, it is really cool to be able to, you know, social media can have a lot of negative sides, but the beautiful positive side is that it gives you access to people all over the world. And these people might not have had this opportunity outside of it. So yeah, to be able to come into people's lives and to help create a plan for them and customize an approach for them that's going to work for them long term, it really is priceless. Like I tell people, I feel like I'm living the dream.
That's so great to hear. So now tell me a little bit about, because I know that there's a lot of people that they struggle with motivation, consistency in their fitness journey, right? What strategies do you tend to employ at Dakota Lane Fitness to help your clients obtain, like, commit to those obstacles, stay committed to their goals, cultivate a positive mindset towards health and wellness, and not quit on themselves or on you while you're helping them along the way?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is to be realistic. I think a lot of people, especially Americans, we want the quick fix. We want to find that one thing that's just going to change everything. And I think that people have this idea that if I start this new approach, it's just everything's gonna be easier, and I'm never gonna fail, and it's gonna be perfect. And then when something comes up and it's not perfect, all of a sudden they start to doubt everything, and they think, "Oh my gosh, I'm a failure again." And so for me, I set the bar very high in the beginning, and I tell people that, like, I'm gonna set the bar high. But the reason why is because I want to give you a challenge. But even if we shoot for that, even if we don't hit it right away, we're still gonna be making massive improvements because we're reaching for so much. It's kind of like the cliche, shoot for the moon and you land on the stars or something like that. But just being realistic, like working with humans, you're not gonna have a perfect approach. I don't care who you're working with. There's always going to be something that comes up. Someone in your family passes away, or you get sick, or your kids get sick, or you get fired from your job, or you go on vacation, or whatever. There's so many things. And for me, when I do consultations with people and I tell people, sometimes I'll be asked, what's your approach to health and fitness? And I tell people my approach is the human approach. And what I mean by that is working with humans means that life is crazy, but I know you have goals, but you also want to experience the fullness of the human life. Part of that means I want you to be able to have cake on your birthday. I want you to be able to go on vacation to Mexico and to be able to enjoy the foods on vacation. I want you to be able to celebrate, Christmas and be able to enjoy the festivities and know that it's not going to take away from your goals. Being health focused doesn't mean you have to get rid of all the fun of life. It should help you to enjoy that more. So for me, with motivation, that's the first thing, would be realistic, because there's going to be times where you might fail, but the whole point is getting up and keep going. And that's, I think, the biggest difference with me, and that I'll tell clients when they come to me. They're like, "Oh, I had a bad week, or I had a bad month." It's like, okay, you might have had a bad day, week, month, whatever, but the fact is you're coming to me, and we're going to make a plan, and we're going to get back to it. And that's the difference, because if you weren't working with somebody, you'd have a bad week or a bad day, whatever, and then you just fall off. And then how long is it again until you try again? Another 4 months, another year, another 2 years. But instead, it's only 1 day or 1 week or 1 month or whatever, and then you're right back to it. So for me, it's just about getting back to it, having consistency, because people aren't going to be perfect, but as long as we're checking in. One of the things that I love to do from a faith perspective, but it doesn't necessarily have to be from a faith perspective, is to offer my workouts as a prayer for somebody else. So at the beginning of a workout or whatever, maybe I have an aunt or somebody who's struggling with cancer, sickness, or depression or whatever. People will run marathons and they dedicate this. I'm running this for my aunt, or people will dedicate a book or a movie in the credits. It'll say dedicated to my son, whatever. So like we're familiar with that, but we don't do that with our daily life, but we can. So like every workout, I can dedicate this, or I can make this a prayer and offer it up, make it about something more than just me. So like this will come up with my clients where I'll say, I'm really struggling with motivation, or like, hi, I know I should work out today, but I don't want to. And I'll say, okay, who are we going to dedicate this for? Because it's a lot easier to show up for somebody else than it is for myself. So if I ask my client, okay, who are we offering this up for? And he says, all right, for my wife who has cancer. I say, okay, if you don't work out, you're gonna feel different. I can guarantee that person's gonna work out if they say, I'm gonna dedicate this for my wife who has cancer, and I'm gonna pray, whatever it may be. I pray that I may have the strength to perform this workout so that the other person may have the grace to be strong in whatever battle they're enduring. Something simple like that. It takes it about being more than just me wanting to look better and feel better, and it makes it about something so much more. So even for parents, like, I'm offering this for my kids. I know that if I dedicate myself on the days that I don't want to, it's going to pay off to be a better parent for my kids. So I think things like that for me are big, to be able to help people to stay motivated. And then just to remind people of, number one, why did you start? And number two, look how far you've came. Sometimes we progress so much and we're just comparing to where we are now. We think, I want so much more. And I have to remind them, look at how far you've come already. So like seeing their pictures and their transformation, look how far you've already come. So a lot of different aspects, and everybody has different baggage and psychology that comes with it. Some people struggle more, that motivation, it's going to come and go. And so, people will say dedication over motivation or discipline over motivation. What that means again, is just, if I make this commitment, there's going to be plenty of times that I don't feel like it. Even for myself, like there's tons of times that I don't feel like working out. I don't want to eat more, chicken breast or whatever. I don't want to do this or that, but I make a commitment, and like the dedication makes you see it through, even when the motivation's kind of wavering.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. There's some weeks, like, for example, this past month, I've been on a, hey, no sweets at all until my birthday, which is coming up on Friday. And I've been really struggling the past 3 weeks. Like, oh, I really want to eat. I really want to eat the sweets, and I don't. And I see that you're impacting, so greatly and helping others. What do you do? And you're uplifting them at the same time. What do you do to uplift yourself when you don't have motivation or that dedication that you need? Because you're helping so many people around the world and around the United States, across the 50 states, right? What do you do for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, sometimes I would say I have more of like a stoic mentality when it comes to this. Like for me, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. I want to be the type of person. So yeah, so for motivation for myself, I have this mentality of like, there's a certain type of person that I want to be, and in order to achieve that, there's a certain amount of there's a certain type of behavior that I'm going to have to do in order to accomplish that. So are we still recording?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure. So for me, it's really about the dedication and the discipline to these decisions, because again, this isn't just about me. This is about the big impact that I'm having. I mean, the easiest example is for my clients. Like if I don't practice what I preach, I'm going to be a hypocrite to them. How can I, tell all these people to do these certain things if I'm not myself also doing them? So just by coaching people, that's a, one layer of accountability. But a lot of times it starts with the little ways. And so this is kind of how I try to frame my whole mind, is that just kind of these self beliefs of like, I'm a person who does hard things. I'm a person who's not going to take the easy way out. I'm a person who's going to go above and beyond to do the work to get the results that I want. Those types of things. And just like having those self mottos, and then those inspire every action that I do. One small example that I use a lot is, let's say you're walking into the mall and you go to throw a piece of trash away and you miss the trash can. There's a decision there. Some people like, oh, somebody else will pick it up, and they just go about their day. But for me, it's like, no, I'm going to go out of my way and pick up the trash because it's the right thing to do. Or, oh, I left something upstairs. I'll get it later. I don't feel like going to get it. Like, no, I'm going to go get it now because I want to train myself to do hard things so I can know that I'm that type of person. So that when it comes to the bigger moments, I'm able to have that self-discipline to know that I'm in control. And I think that's where a lot of people just live so self-indulgently. Whatever they feel like, whatever they want to eat that day, whatever they feel like, I don't feel like working out, they just go by their feelings. They never make a commitment and practice those self-disciplines to do things that they don't want to do. And that's a big part of becoming successful. You have to be willing to do things that you don't feel like doing. I can guarantee you, every entrepreneur who's successful, every person who's won a championship in sports, there's been tons of moments that they didn't feel like doing something. They didn't feel like getting up and doing the same thing that day or going to practice or whatever it may be, but they did. Because if they want to get to that next level, the way that I tell clients is, if you want to be above average, you have to be willing to work above average. What do average people do? Oh, it's been a long day. I'm just going to get some takeout and have some wine and have some chocolate. There's days for that. That's fine here and there. But if we're doing that every time we feel a certain way, then we're just constantly training ourselves that, oh, if I feel something, I can just indulge, as opposed to, oh, I feel this way, I'm going to proactively go against that. And so even from a faith perspective, like one of the practices that's happening right now is Lent, which is a Catholic thing, but it's a period of fasting and prayer. And different religions do different things, but the whole point of fasting is to deny myself a certain good for a greater good. And that's what nutrition and fitness is all about. Like, people asking me, how do you stay motivated in the gym? It's like, I don't. There's a lot of days that I don't want to, but I'm sacrificing a smaller good for a greater good. So yeah, there's, everyone's going to have a different perspective, but those are some things for me.
That's really great advice because I use a lot of what you just implemented and the little tips that listeners, please rewind like 2 or 3 minutes to rehear this because this is amazing tips that you should definitely follow. Now, Dakota, let's get to the last two questions. One of them I want to talk about a little bit about BCAAs known in the fitness industry, which are also known, if you don't know what they are, they're known as brand chain amino acids. They're usually sold and advertised for potential benefits in growth. Same thing as creatine. I know that creatine is widely studied in the fitness community. Can you elaborate if you recommend this to your clients?
Mm-hmm.
When should they be using it? For what types of workouts? And how do you provide this within the nutrition plans for Dakota Lane Fitness?
Yeah, so just to speak on a whole level about supplements, and then I'll go into those two particular. So supplements they are beneficial. I think, again, too many people focus too much on the quick fixes. So they think, oh, I have this issue, I just want to pop some pills. And first and foremost, the priority should be nutrition. A good holistic nutrition approach that takes care of most things. Supplements should supplement what you're not getting from nutrition. So if you have a good nutrition, you shouldn't eat a lot of extra. But there are some things our body doesn't make or doesn't make enough of that we can supplement to help out. So most supplements, we have to be careful. There's not regulation on how they're branded or the ingredients. So a lot of supplements can put in kind of whatever they want, and you might not necessarily know. And it'll be advertised, this helps with fat loss or muscle growth, or whatever, but you need to have somebody who can help you to understand the ingredients, because even some that have certain ingredients don't have enough to be a certain way. One example would be branched chain amino acids. So branched chain amino acids became popular, I would say, within the past couple of decades, but probably, more so the past, I would say, 5 to 10 years. And so the branched amino acids in general are the building blocks of protein. So the whole idea of branched chain amino acids was that if we're getting more of these building blocks of protein, our body's going to have more to utilize for muscle growth and recovery and things like that. There's 3 branched chain amino acids, which are valine, leucine, and isoleucine. The most important one is leucine, which is responsible for what's called muscle protein synthesis, which is our body's ability to recover and rebuild muscle. So the idea was, if I get more of those 3 things, I'm going to be able to have more of them to, produce these results. Unfortunately, research has shown that it doesn't really pan out. When I first started 8 years ago, I was a big proponent of BCAAs, and I would have clients take them. New research has come out, and if you're a good coach or good teacher, you should be willing to admit when you are wrong or when you've learned something new. So for me, it was, hey, we've learned something new research has come out. Branched chain amino acids are not really as conducive as we thought they would be. Are they going to be harmful? Absolutely not. Are they a great, addition or substitute for water? Absolutely. Throw them in some water. Can they help a little bit, maybe with some endurance or muscle recovery? Yes, but really only if you're not getting enough protein. If you're getting enough normal protein and whole food, you probably won't need a lot of extra amino acids because you're already getting enough from your food. Now, what the fitness community has moved a bit more to is a bit more of a broadened perspective, which are called essential amino acids. So the branched chain amino acids are the 3, but there's a bunch of others, I believe 21, that all make up essential amino acids. And so more supplement companies are moving toward creating essential amino acids. So those are typically what I recommend to clients now, because you're going to get a more broad perspective. But either way, the main priority needs to be on getting protein from good whole foods first, and then you can implement those. So yeah, research, unfortunately, like, they're not going to be as conducive as we first thought for recovery or muscle growth. Are they going to hurt? Absolutely not. Could they help? Definitely. Good times to take them, honestly, anytime throughout the day. But this is one of the things where you have to make sure you're getting enough of them, that they're dosed properly, or else they're not going to be as effective. A lot of the branched chain amino acids from these companies that I see underdose them. So you think, oh, I'm getting great, but like you end up needing to have like 2 scoops or whatever. So they're just not, dosed properly. So that's kind of the amino acid spiel. I like essential amino acids. I think people will notice a difference, with muscle endurance, with recovery. But again, you should be focused primarily on food. So that's kind of the whole thing. If people do want to take BCAAs, that's fine. Again, it's not going to be anything harmful. But again, just be educated to know that it's not going to be like, a massive game changer. Now, on the flip side, when it comes to creatine, this would be something that is a big game changer. It's the most researched supplement in the world by far. It's extremely effective. I remember first hearing about it in high school. People were so miseducated. I always heard this thing that people said, creatine is one molecule away from steroids. And it was just all this miseducation. People think creatine is like for these big bodybuilders. No, creatine basically helps us to produce more of a certain energy. So there's a type of energy called adenosine triphosphate, ATP, which is basically our muscles' energy source that we use when we work out and you're moving weight or you're riding a bike or whatever. Your muscles are using ATP. So after you do a set, let's say, of bicep curls, you use ATP. Your body has to replenish it for your next set. So creatine basically helps our body to produce more and more efficiently of ATP. So that's why it helps with overall strength. It helps with muscle endurance. It does help with muscle recovery and muscle size, simply because it's helping our muscles to have more of the energy that they need to perform the way they want to perform. People will talk about like bloating with them sometimes, or, water weight. Creatine adds a bit of water to your muscles, but that's basically to help them, again, doing what they're supposed to be doing. And this could be another question we go into, a hydration, but our muscles are made up of primarily water. So it's important to have enough water. And that's where, at first people may feel like a little bit of bloat, but typically speaking, long term, it's going to balance out. Dosaging, some people will load it for like 20 grams a day for a week. You don't need to do that necessarily. I typically recommend just 5 grams a day of creatine monohydrate. There's different forms now, creatine HCl and different things. Creatine monohydrate is still going to be just perfectly effective. It's pretty cheap. It got more expensive over COVID, but it still is pretty cheap. 5 grams a day. Typically, I would say before a workout, you just mix in some water. There's a lot of good, brands who make it, but as long as the ingredients just say it's creatine monohydrate, 1 serving is 5 grams, and it's pretty good. So that's my spiel on those 2 things. There's a lot of different supplements, but those are 2 of the big ones for sure. Creatine is definitely effective for men and women, really of any age. So if anybody's doing strength training, they should definitely be incorporating it.
Yes, definitely. And I know that there's supposed to be a resting period, right, of creatine also.
Yeah, you can go on phases where you do it for like, let's say 4 weeks and then take 2 weeks off. Honestly, I haven't seen a lot of, research that indicates a super big necessity. If you're eating good, honestly, I take creatine typically when I work out. So if I work out 5 or 6 days a week, there's going to be 1 or 2 days that I maybe don't take it. You could still take it on those days and do like, 4 consistent weeks or whatever. As far as loading or unloading, I don't really think, I haven't seen anything that really shows that you need to do a deloading phase as much. Your body's going to utilize it as it needs to. And as long as you're not doing, over 5 grams and you're working out consistently, your body's going to utilize it.
Okay.
But yeah, have you seen something different on like the deloading phase?
So usually what I've been doing, because I've talked to nutritionists and I've done tested with blood and so on, and checked my different levels of hemoglobin and so on. I usually do 8 weeks, then take 1 week or 2 weeks off, and then continue. That's what I do.
That's perfect. And honestly, that goes for a lot of things that we do. Like sometimes it's good for our body just to have a reset. Now, obviously not when it comes to fundamental things like water or like food, but some of the additional things like that can definitely be good to have some of those breaks to just make sure our body is still naturally producing the way we want.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I can't believe it's been over an hour. Time has gone by in this like absolutely amazing podcast, which I'm so thrilled about to share with everyone. It's been an electrifying one, talking about the world of fitness and nutrition with amazing Dakota, who has been an impact to many, as you guys have heard. Where could we find you? How could people hear about you? tell me all about it so we can share it with everyone.
Yeah, so my website is just dakotalanefitness.com. That's pretty much my name on all my platforms. So Instagram is Dakota Lane Fitness, Facebook Dakota Lane Fitness. But yeah, if people ever want to get in contact with me, dakotalanefitness.com has a way that you can email me. And I'm always happy to answer questions, even if it's not about coaching. Even if people just have random questions, they can always email me that way. So my email would be dakota@dakotalanefitness.com. You can also go to my website and find it that way. So Instagram, Facebook, and then some TikTok, but not much.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us. We truly appreciate it. This is the Bishu Show. I'm Carolina signing off for now. Until next time, embrace your beauty, nurture your well-being, and always remember you are enough. Thank you for being part of the Bishu community.